It started as a night of football, laughter, and friendship, but ended in blood, betrayal, and a murder broadcast live to the world. How does a teenage boy go from cheering for his team, to stabbing his best friend in the heart? This is not just a story of violence, it's a descent into madness no one saw coming. They say some nights change lives. Others, end them. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, the grand finale of the European Football Championship. Friends across the country gathered around screens, cheering and laughing. Among them, two boys from Wales, Kyle Walley and Mark Harley Jones. Longtime friends. Familiar faces. Just two teens getting together for the game. But behind the smiles and small talk, something sinister was already in motion. Hours later, Kyle would be lying in a pool of his own blood, stabbed in the heart, viciously kicked and stomped as he lay dying. And the world? It watched in real time. The horror streamed on Snapchat like some kind of grotesque show. But this wasn't just the story of a match gone wrong. No, this had been brewing for far longer. During the suffocating stillness of the 2020 lockdown, while the world tried to stay safe behind closed doors, 17-year-old Mark Jones was descending into darkness. Isolated from the world, he immersed himself in blades, not metaphorically, but literally. His mind became fixated on knives, curved, serrated, military-grade. His internet history was a disturbing museum of violence, graphic imagery, weapon guides, how-to videos. The longer the silence lasted, the louder the noise grew in his mind. Then came the video. Posted quietly on TikTok on June 23, Mark appeared in a strange, chilling clip, eerie and poetic, if not for the terrifying message beneath it. Roses are red. Mark stabbed his dad out of hate. It was cryptic. It was dark. But worst of all, it felt real. He spoke of prison with a twisted sense of pride. This wasn't hidden anymore. The mask had dropped, and he didn't seem to care. Those who knew him say he carried blades constantly, flaunting them like medals of honor. On Snapchat, he grinned into the camera, brandishing knives as though daring the world to react. What once felt like idle threats were quickly becoming flashing red alarms. The question wasn't if something terrible would happen, it was when. Then came the day of the final. Football fever had gripped the UK, even in Wales, where England's progress to the final had still stirred excitement. People were looking for joy, an escape after months of lockdown misery. Kyle and Mark, too, made their own plans. Just two mates, watching the match together. Nothing unusual. Except, there was. The day before the match, Kyle's phone lit up with a string of unsettling videos. Sent by Mark. One threatened his life. Another casually suggested cutting off Kyle's ear, said with such casual venom it was almost theatrical. But Kyle brushed it off. Mark had always been a bit off. Too intense. This, he thought, was just another one of his bizarre jokes. He couldn't have been more wrong. Match day arrived. The streets buzzed. Inside Kyle's apartment, everything seemed normal. He and Mark exchanged light messages that morning, bantering like old friends. Drinks were bought. Plans were set. Laughter was expected. But what Kyle didn't know was that as Mark pedaled the short 2-mile trip to his flat, he wasn't coming over as a friend. He was bringing something else with him, something sharp. Something final. Inside the small apartment, the evening unfolded just as any other would. The drinks were flowing, laughter echoed off the walls, and for a brief time, it felt like two old friends enjoying a match and a drink. But as the hours dragged on and the bottles drained, a shift occurred, quiet at first, then unmistakable. Mark's energy began to fracture. His jokes came with a bite. His eyes held something colder now, something dangerous. The warmth had drained from the room. Kyle felt it. The unease. The storm building behind Mark's stare. Then it came crashing down. The knives weren't just for show anymore. Mark pulled them out, not to impress, but to intimidate. His voice, once casual, turned to threats, loud, erratic, unhinged. He paced. He shouted. He waved the blades like a man possessed. Panic set in. Kyle reached for his phone, typing frantically, messages to friends, desperate cries for help. He's acting mad. He's got a knife. But even as fear coursed through his veins, Kyle didn't run. Maybe he didn't think it would go this far. Maybe he believed Mark still had a shred of sanity. Maybe, deep down, he didn't want to abandon his friend. But then, the nightmare began. The shouting turned to screaming. The air filled with the sound of chaos, slamming, crashing, raw violence erupting in a flash. Let me go out this room for 10 minutes. Mark's voice barked through the madness. It's my ADHD. I can't help it. Excuses wrapped in rage. Confusion turned into catastrophe. Then, silence shattered by a horrifying confession. You got stabbed up 'cause you pissed me off. Yeah. Man stabbed Kyle Walley. His voice was cold. Proud. Detached. And then, a chilling twist. He broadcasted it. Mark streamed the attack live on Snapchat. Dozens watched in real time. Some thought it was a sick joke. Others knew it was real, and terrifying. Messages poured in. Viewers begged someone to help. Friends tried calling. Strangers dialed emergency services. But it was already too late. While Kyle bled on the floor, gasping for air, fighting for life, Mark kept the camera rolling. By the time the police arrived, the nightmare had played out. Kyle couldn't be saved. Mark didn't run far. The streets outside were already lit up in siren blue. Witnesses had called from across the country, all tipped off by the Snapchat story. Friends of Kyle, terrified and helpless, gave every detail they could. The arrest was quick. His hands were still wet with blood. At the station, Mark tried to shift the story. Claimed Kyle attacked first. Claimed he acted in self-defense. Said he wrestled the knife away and acted in fear. The evidence said otherwise. Then came another desperate spin, that Kyle was some kind of predator, and that Mark had done the world a favor. There was no truth to it. No criminal record. No conviction. Just another lie, stacked on top of a senseless murder. When the trial began, Mark showed no emotion. No apology. No remorse. He pleaded not guilty. But the jury saw through it all. The verdict, guilty of murder. The sentence, life in prison. But with a shocking twist, eligible for parole after just 16 years. The courtroom fell silent. For some, it was justice. For others, it was an insult. During sentencing, the judge acknowledged Kyle's mental health struggles, a tragic note that may have weighed in the decision. But it didn't ease the pain. Kyle's life was ended in a storm of betrayal. His final moments were filled with fear and cries for help that arrived just a heartbeat too late. Now, all that remains are the memories of a life cut short, and the haunting question that no one can answer: why? Graduation cap lessons from the Snapchat murder case. 1. Never ignore red flags. Mark showed clear signs of violent obsession, from threats to weapon flaunting. Kyle received disturbing messages but brushed them off as dark jokes. This teaches us, take every threat seriously, no matter how familiar the person is. 2. Mental health should never be ignored. Both victim and attacker had mental health struggles. But untreated issues, especially when mixed with isolation and violent obsessions, can spiral into tragedy. We must break the stigma around mental health and encourage early intervention. 3. Social media isn't a toy, it can be a weapon. Mark didn't just commit the crime, he broadcasted it. Social media turned a private horror into a public spectacle. This is a wake-up call about how platforms can be misused, and how desensitized viewers have become. 4. Choose your friends wisely. Long friendships don't guarantee safety. Kyle trusted someone with a long history of disturbing behavior. This case reminds us that loyalty should never override common sense or gut instinct. 5. Justice doesn't always feel like justice. Mark received a minimum sentence of 16 years, a decision that left many feeling the punishment didn't match the crime. It's a reminder that the legal system often has limits, and victims' families may never get full closure. 6. Silence can be deadly. Friends saw Mark's social posts. Some even witnessed parts of his behavior. But no one intervened soon enough. Speaking up when something feels wrong could save a life. 7. The true cost of violence is never just one life. Kyle lost his life, but the impact didn't stop there. His family, friends, and even viewers who watched the footage were left traumatized.